Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you to you both for being here with us, and just to reiterate Mr. Zeldin's point that that the department has been very responsive, very present when we've needed help with a particular constituent. That said, we need help, and there are some concerns I have about where we are right now in terms of providing services to people who need them. Let me just give you a couple of examples. I have a constituent, an American citizen, whose wife made a very difficult journey to Addis in Ethiopia in March for a visa appointment. It was understandably canceled in March. But it's a little bit harder for me to explain to that family why now in July we still cannot tell them when this American citizen's wife might get an expedited appointment. She has DHS per paperwork, everything in order. Another case, I have an American citizen child in my district whose Indian father was here on an H-1B visa, happened to go back to India in March because his father had passed away, went back for the funeral, and his appointment for his H-1B renewal was canceled, again, understandably in March, but a little bit less understandable, a little bit harder to explain to that child why in July we still can't tell him when his father might be able to get that appointment. So I guess my question is, why is it that at this point, especially with the resources we've given you, we cannot conduct expedited interviews in these relatively few cases where there's an American family that is broken up? Here we are meeting by video conferencing here. You certainly have that capacity technologically to conduct interviews. You have legal authority to waive the personal appearance requirement in cases where the national interest argues for it, or if there's an unusual or exigent circumstance. When can we expect progress in this area? To either of you who wants to take that.
Thank you, Mr. Malinowski, for your questions. I agree. The separation of families is heartrending. I'm pleased to say that I think it was last Wednesday, July 15th, we sent instructions to the field on how to resume routine visa operations. This will be largely dependent upon the condition, the diplomacy strong. And you understand when I say the phase of diplomacy strong in which a particular post is. For those posts that are in the later phases 2 and 3, it will be subject to essentially chief of mission. The Emergency Action Committee can decide that's where they are. The post may undertake routine visa services consistent with good health practices, safety, et cetera. The posts that are at phases 0 and 1 may come into the department to request permission to conduct certain sorts of visa applications. Visa adjudications. So, for example, we're seeing requests coming in from some posts to begin doing student visa applications. So this is getting underway now. One of the difficulties we're finding is that this is not a static situation. I was briefing a DCM headed to a European post just yesterday. As our conversation began, we were discussing how his soon-to-be post was at phase 2. One of the staffers from the EUR Bureau broke in partway through the conversation and said, "I'm sorry, the post just asked to go back to phase 1." So,
but what about waiving the in-person requirement? You've done that apparently, I think. In some
yes, sir. We've done this with regard to certain workers, for example, the agricultural workers coming out of Mexico, the H-2As.
So why not students and scholars? Why not other categories?
I would be happy to take the question under advisement, sir, with regard to specifically with regard to those constituents. We are looking at everything we can do to get visa operations moving as quickly as possible.
Okay. I mean, let me just close with a final comment that I find almost painful to make, but we all first and foremost want to protect the safety of U.S. government employees. If I were a Foreign Service family with kids wanting to enroll them in school right now, I can think of a large number of countries where I would feel safer than the United States of America. if we were going to apply that phasing system to ourselves, we would not actually rank very highly. And I wonder whether we can do more to take that into account, as hard it is to acknowledge how poorly we are doing in response to this crisis domestically in making these sorts of determinations. And with that, I yield back. Thank you very much.